I made my first web app. Let's go. It tells you if you should read the news today or not based on how negative the news is and the user's own tolerance of bad news. If you can't tolerate much bad news and the news is pretty bad, it will say, don't read the news today. Stay tuned until the end of this video to see it in action. Like and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated as I launch the beginning of this YouTube channel. Hello.
Hello. Sorry, one, that I'm late. But hi.
It's
How are
okay.
you?
I use Llama 2, which is Facebook/Meta's new AI model. I did this using a service called Llama 2. No, I did this using a service called Replicate, which allows you to run machine learning models in the cloud as opposed to running it on your PC or having to find your own cloud model to run it for you. Some stats. Version 1 took around 16 to 20 hours to build and around 3.5 days. All included, between all the files, it's got around 380 lines of code. The code will be available in the description below as well if you want to see the whole thing from start to finish. So I used 4 tools. Replit, which is an online IDE or development environment. Replicate, which allowed me to run AI models in the cloud. News API, which is just an open source API that I queried to scrape news headlines and pass them to the AI model. And Notion, just for documenting all my notes and progress and obstacles and that kind of thing. It's got primarily 3 languages, Python, HTML, and JavaScript. I used Flask, which is a micro web framework written in Python to deploy the thing on the web. It's so basic, the front end at least, but it does what I want it to do, which is pretty exciting. By the end of the first day, I had figured out which model I was going to use and how I was going to use it, and had built kind of like the basic structure of what the app would look like, both on the front end and the back end with the API calls and whatnot, and like one API feeding stuff to the other API. By the end of the second Day 1 was all about figuring out the model. The funny thing is that later on I switched to a free Python sentiment analysis package because it was quite expensive to run this thing. Each 5 headlines analyzed was around 2 cents would cost me, and that adds up if you're doing multiple of these per person per day or something like that. I started with some code from Replit's 100 Days of Python course on combining OpenAI and News API. As you can see here, at the top you've got some imports, OS, request, JSON, and OpenAI. You've got some environment variables being assigned. You have a country being selected, in this case Great Britain, because the teacher of this course was British. A URL being passed to the API with the country as a variable inside the URL that's customizable, and the news key, API key, as that environment variable that I set up top. And then jumping down to this counter section, or this for loop, basically for each article in this dictionary of articles, which contains the result of what the news API queried. You're just going through each article and passing it to the OpenAI model with a prompt, summarize this in 1 sentence, and the OpenAI model gets back with the summary. So I took that concept and kind of expanded on it. Basically, instead of you telling it within this backend that you want Great Britain, you let the user decide, pass that front end input to the backend, and then in the back end you execute all this other code, like calling the AI model. Still on day 1, I ran into a bunch of trouble where I was playing with the demo for the Llama 2 model. It was not giving me the output that I wanted. Then I realized I probably needed something like ChatGPT. I went back to ChatGPT, asked it to summarize and give me a sentiment analysis in the format that I wanted, and it worked, and I was like, okay, maybe there's like a chat equivalent. Lo and behold, a couple clicks later, on the front page of this Replicate website, there were chat versions of the 70 billion parameter model, the 13 billion parameter model, and some other ones for Llama 2. It took a while to get to this conclusion though. I emailed some guy for help that was doing some cool stuff with Llama 2 on Twitter, and I even posted in the Replicate Discord before I figured this out myself. Day 2. By the end of the second day, I had a fully functioning app, which is crazy. The front end was done, but this is like, Nick, this is like the simplest of simple front ends. Like, I think it's still in that form, although like maybe there's some more dynamicism to it, but it's like no CSS styling, super basic HTML, looks like mid 90s or early 2000s web page.
Yeah.
But
still, it's working.
But it worked, yeah. And the coolest part was like clicking run and seeing the headlines from the news API get pushed into the app and then passed to the AI model, which is like
Yeah.
has some name brand recognition to it. It's kind of cool with the Meta's AI
Yeah.
model. That was just a
Yeah.
really cool feeling to see like a working app.
That's
Yeah.
cool. Okay, so it sounds like you don't hate coding though. Is that check, or are you still testing the idea?
Fantastic question. I don't hate coding.
Okay.
This is the day that ChatGPT probably started getting annoyed with me. Here's some screenshots of the chats that I had. They're very long. Finished the day with this code, which basically contained four things. Simple front end for the user, done with 2 input forms and a submit button using Flask and HTML. A result page to display the recommendation to the user once the user clicks submit and the analysis was finished. Different messages that needed to be given to the user, basically the recommendations depending on the user's input and the negativity of the articles. And then both APIs being called, with the headlines being passed to the AI model effectively. This was really, really cool. Finally, I had a working application, something that did something once the user asked it to do something. And it was fully complete with a front end and a back end. And that felt really good. Day 3, I fixed an issue where the model I was using wasn't giving me an output in only one of the 3 forms, where it was like, I just wanted negative, positive, and neutral, so that I could count out the number of negatives, number of positive headlines, and number of neutral headlines, and then find a ratio and use that ratio to recommend whether or not the user should read the headlines. Using a feature of one of the models called System Prompt to fix this. I basically just demand to the AI model that it can only respond with one word, positive, negative, or neutral. Other things I did on day 3, I created a little about page. I tried to tackle an issue I called dynamic article analysis, where I wanted the articles to appear on the front page as they were being analyzed. Before that, you were being taken to a different page. After some delay, it took some time to load because the analysis had to finish before you were taken to the other page, and then you saw all the articles. And I wanted it all to be on one page, no separate like link where the website address is changing. There's no extra slash something at the end. I wanted it all to be on the same page and for the articles that appeared dynamically. I gave it a try this day, but I didn't get very far because I don't have a lot of JavaScript experience. That's something I still need to look into. I ended up deploying the bad boy at the end of the day, and this is the first time that I really got to see something I had created from scratch working and online, which was, I don't know, felt great. Drumroll please. This is the app. It's not super crazy, not super flashy front end. It's like super simple, but it's called Should I Read the News Today? Let AI help you decide. First, answer the following questions. So you put in your tolerance of bad news. 10 being you can tolerate all bad news. You're impervious. Bad news doesn't affect you. I'm gonna say today I'm feeling like I'm around a 6. I can tolerate some, but not everything. Then you pick the country to analyze the news of. I am in Bali. I don't speak fluent Indonesian just yet, so I'm going to go with my home country, the United States. And then you click submit. It's going to start analyzing a random sample of headlines from the country you chose. You're going to have to wait a little bit. This is where the news API, open source API is getting queried and is passing that to the AI model. Now you see the headlines popping up. Boom, boom, boom. 5 headlines. Each one has been rated positive, negative, or neutral. Looks like 3 are negative, 1 is neutral, 1 is positive. And so the result is you probably don't want to read the news. It doesn't look too fun. The fun part is to try to like figure out whether or not you agree with how the Llama 2 analysis was done. As of the recording, it is still using Llama 2. Soon it will be switched over to a sentiment analysis package that's free. But for now, we can look at each of these headlines and see if we agree. Some guy KO'd another guy at UFC, positive. Sure. Emmy-winning actor has passed away. That is negative. Russia's lander reports an emergency before moon landing. I think it associates negativity with the word emergency, so negative. A game analysis from a soccer game, I believe. That's neutral. And then someone experienced a medical episode. That's negative. So for the most part, I would agree. Maybe the first one is a little iffy, but that's that. Something that happened on the back end. So here's the code base and the tool that's running the code. I'm in main.py right now, and I programmed it so that in the console, as the analysis is being done, what you're going to see is the different article headlines popping up, the output string, which is being pulled in from whatever's being spit out by the AI model, In this case, it should just be one word, positive, negative, or neutral. And then there's a function that counts the number of negative, neutral, and positive articles that have been received so far. That's over here. You can see that in these if statements that are buried inside of a larger for loop. And that's it. And then you get a ratio of bad to good headlines, and that's used up here to determine, so you calculate the overall negative headlines ratio, and then from that, you decide what to tell the user as a sentiment analysis recommendation. That's the app. Over here in Replicate, you can see the recent predictions that have been done. I'm going to refresh the page just to make sure that it's accurate. Yep, around 2 minutes ago, 5 API queries were done. Each of them succeeded, and if you go into one of them, it's this random hash ID. Here's the prompt. It's the following headline, positive, negative, neutral. And then the system prompt, where you can only respond with one word, positive, negative, neutral. And the AI model outputs negative for the medical episode headline. It's got one edge case captured, which is that if you put in your tolerance, but you don't select the country code, you click submit. Oops, you forgot something. You're redirected back to the main page to put in the country. And that's it. That's how my app works. Now you know whether or not you should read the news today. By the time this video will be uploaded, I will have done away with the Llama 2 AI model, and I will be using a free sentiment analysis package that's written in Python. As it was starting to get pricey, like I mentioned, it would cost me around 2 cents for every 5 articles analyzed. I will also have deployed it on my website, which is bennyrubinov.com. I'll link it down below. And I'll have fixed some bugs and optimize the layout of the code. Some directions I can take this in the future, what I'll call V3 of the app. I want to redeploy it on a cheaper and maybe more permanent hosting solution. Replit just gets a little bit expensive. It comes out to like $6 per month, but if I can save money there and do something a little bit cheaper, that would be great, especially given the theme of this channel. I could add categories for sports and politics so that people are alerted when they should read the news in particular fields or industries. You could also potentially rate articles based on political leaning and then recommend that to users based off of that. Ideally with the purpose of getting people out of their political bubble. Anyways, those are some ideas I have. That's the app. Thank you for following along. More to come soon. If you have any app ideas, any suggestions for videos that you want me to make, please let me know. This is the start of a long journey, and I'm super excited to be on it. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.
Fucking.